Okay, so these are the first 5 questions for AQA Economics AS Econ 2. So the first question asks, fiscal policy involves the use of A. Interest rates, B. Direct and indirect taxes, C. The money supply, D. Exchange rate. Fiscal policy is all about the government's taxation and revenue. So we're looking at either a tax change or a change in government expenditure. And the only one here that does that is B. Interest rates, the money supply and the exchange rates are all monetary policy. They're all monetary tools. Whereas a change in the direct and indirect taxes is fiscal policy. Question 2 has the diagram below. The diagram below shows 2 production possibility frontiers for an economy. The economy is initially at point X on the possibility frontier EE, this one. The outwards movement of the production possibility frontier from EE to FF with increased production of both types of good Y is most likely to be the result of the following. Is it A, a decrease in unemployment in the economy, B, the implementation of supply side policies, C, an increase in the rate of inflation, D, the elimination of a negative output gap? So from moving from this PPF, E to E, to F to F, we are moving our PPF curve outwards. So we're looking at something that shows economic growth. A decrease in unemployment in the economy would move us from inside our PPF curve to on the boundary, because the boundary is where we're using all our factors of production. Everything is being used. The implementation of supply side policies would allow economic growth. So that would allow us to move from this PPF curve to this one. So that's what the answer is for this one, it's B. When we were moving from this point, we'll just call this W to X. That could be seen as moving, well, it is the elimination of a negative output gap, but we're not doing that, we're moving from X to Y. So it's always economic growth when it's moving outwards. Okay. So now question 3. Which of the following combinations is correct regarding the rate of inflation and the responsibilities of the UK Government and Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England? The Bank of England is independent of the government, but the government sets the inflation target rate. But the Bank of England is free to set the interest rate, and they set the interest rate that they think is best suited for the inflation target that the government give them. So the inflation target is set by the government, so it's either these two, and the interest rate is set by the Monetary Policy Committee. So that answer is B. Okay, so now we go on to question 4. Question 4 is asking which one of the following is most likely to cause demand pull inflation. Remember, there is 2 types of inflation. There's demand pull and there is cost push. So we're just trying to see which one of these factors does cause demand pull. So, is it A, an increase in indirect taxation, B, an increase in productivity, C, a decrease in the interest rate, or D, a rise in oil prices? So if we had B, which is an increase in productivity, that would be supply side. We'll be able to produce more. So that would be the LRAS curve shifting outwards, like this, saying that in our economy we can now produce more. We could have produced this initially, but now we can produce this. So it's not that one. If it was a increase in indirect taxation, that wouldn't have the effect either. A rise in oil prices, that will be SRAS. So that would be the SRAS curve shifting out back, which would actually cause cost push inflation. So the only option it can be is C, which is a decrease in the interest rate. If there's a decrease in the interest rate, individuals will be paying less on their mortgages, it'll be cheaper to borrow, there's less of an incentive to save because you can, there's a lower interest rate, so there's less of a reward, so people will consume now rather than saving. So that would cause AD to shift outwards, which will cause cost push inflation. So the answer to this one is C. So now we'll move on to question 5. So question 5 asks, the diagram below shows two aggregate demand curves and the short run aggregate supply curve for an economy. All other things being equal, a fall in the price level from P1 to P2 could be explained by a fall in A, imports, B, the interest rate, C, labour productivity, D, government spending. It's not going to be labour productivity because that would affect the supply curve, which supply curve is not shifting. We're just looking at the shift from AD1 to AD2. Imports, if there was a fall in imports, that would actually cause AD to shift the other way, because rather than individuals demanding imports, they would now demand goods that are produced in the economy, rather like domestic goods rather than foreign goods. A fall in interest rate, as we've shown in the previous question, will result in AD shifting the other way. So that would actually be AD going this direction rather than what it is actually doing and going this direction. So the only option it can be is D, which is a fall in government expenditure. Remember that AD is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So if there was to be a fall in government expenditure, that would mean AD would fall, providing everything the same remained constant. So the answer to this question is D.